Hello and welcome everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're joining in from today. Welcome to another live session at the Reactors. Before we get into the session, please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We're all here to learn, so please be respectful of other people's views. The chat will be open throughout, and we do encourage you all to participate. Please note that this session is recorded and will be available to view on our Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. Today, we're back again with a very interesting episode, which is called Proactive Post-Event Feedback with Azure Cognitive Services and Power Platform. This session will be led by Bethany and Olanrewaju. And with that, I'm now going to bring them on the screen. Hi, both.
Hi, Rav. Hi, everyone.
Hi everyone.
I'll be in the background if you need me.
Okay, thanks, Rav. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the time zone wherever you're joining us from. Today, it's yet another day to learn something really interesting and something significant. I said this always, you never can tell. With the solution we are building today, you can win Employee of the Year award. You can, or you win the Best Student award because it's really creative and this is something that solves problems in the organization and also wherever you find yourself, either in the training, in the program. So I have with me Bethany, but my name is Olanrewaju Oyinbooke, Senior Cloud Advocate at Microsoft. I'm in charge of AI, data science, Power Platform, and Modern Workplace. And the session today will be led by Bethany, but I will be here supporting and making sure that your questions are answered as well as we get the best program delivered to you. Okay, so just before we move in here, I would like to cite an example of scenarios where this solution is really, really useful. Take, for example, I had a wireless service that I use, broadband that I use in my house. And so for some times I had issue, I wasn't that happy. And after they fixed it, they were so fast. The day it got fixed, almost few minutes after, I got a survey. Oh, how did you can you rate, the experience? Wow. So they were proactive with asking me for my feedback. But because I wasn't happy with how I felt, I passed feedback. I expressed myself. I wasn't happy. And it's over 2 months now. I've never heard anything from them. So this feedback is with them. Maybe they've seen it. Wow, this is a bad feedback, but it's for us to improve. But literally, they didn't get back to me to let me even know that my voice can't. And we know a lot of other services like that. That when you take part in those services or even training, after attending the training, how do you feel about it? You express yourself, but you didn't get people to get back to you like, oh, you were not happy or you weren't satisfied, or even if you are satisfied, oh, we're happy you're satisfied, we're going to find more ways to please you. Things like that doesn't happen. So, and that is what we want to address today. So I will let Bethany do a lot of this work. Over to you, Bethany.
Okay, thank you so much, Ola, for the introductory bit. I'll just emphasize on the same thing. Our session today will be talking about once feedback is given, how do you act on it? How do you make the recipient know that, yes, you received your feedback and you also are grateful for the feedback you received and you're working on it. So my name is Bethany Japchumba. I am a cloud advocate here at Microsoft, and I'll be the one walking you through this session. It's a very engaging session, so be sure to have your Power Automate and Azure already up because you'll be going through those two services and building something from scratch. So in our session today, it's talking about improving post-event engagement. And I've mentioned our services will be Azure and Power Automate. These are the two services we'll be focusing on. And I believe at the end of it all, you'll be able to build your project end to end. So you can be able to showcase to your friends, to your colleagues that, yes, I've been able to build a Power Automate project from beginning to end with the help of Azure Cognitive Services. As this image shows people at an event, they're celebrating, probably a concert. So you can think of your favorite concert that you want to attend. and probably this is the event that you're at. But then after the event is over, what next? So probably there might be people who aren't satisfied by the music. Probably the performer didn't play the music you wanted them to play, or there was some misdemeanor in the event. So how do you ensure when people send you first collect feedback, and secondly, when people send you feedback, you're able to give them the same feedback they've given you, telling them you're working on it. So with the proactive event, with an event, a current event that's happening, when like at a concert, when people start leaving, okay, this is a boring concert, we need to do this and this and this. So that means it's a moment of truth feedback that you will actually be proactive to work on it to improve. Probably if it's the performance, if it's changing the song, that's something you can do. But then after the event, so how do you work on the feedback that's given afterwards? Most of the time it's reactive, but you want this to also be proactive. Don't just react when the feedback is sent. That's you take a while, and then like 5 days later is when you're responding, we received your feedback. And the person who gave you feedback probably has forgotten. So what exactly is proactive post moment of truth feedback? This is a very immediate and dynamic response to feedback that you've submitted. And part of our solution will, I think I've mentioned this, but let me break it down. So part of the solution that we'll be building will entail us using Azure Cognitive Services to determine now the sentiments of the people. Sentiment analysis is how people feel about the event. So it's either positive or negative. Positive means they loved it. Negative means, yeah, you need to work on it. And then you also have a SharePoint list for documenting and tracking the different response times. This, we won't dive into it today, but if you want to now explore your feedback more, the SharePoint list will be very important. Afterwards, we'll create a Microsoft Forms just to collect feedback. So if you have any feedback, we'll use that form to collect the feedback that we need. And then after that, we automate the whole process from Microsoft Forms to the Azure Cognitive Services, and then now give feedback back to the reply to the feedback that we've gotten. So now that will be part of the Microsoft Teams or Outlook for now, the post-event engagement. The solution will look something like this. So when you submit a response, we get the response details, and then using the Azure Cognitive Service, we now detect the sentiment that you shared. Then afterwards, come back and give you feedback, if you're satisfied. If you're satisfied, we probably may not give you feedback, but we just probably might send an email back to you. But then if someone is dissatisfied, we also need to create now like a form for us to be able to see okay, this is a negative feedback that we received and we need to be working on it. Okay, that's it on the presentation bit. So I'll dive right into the code. And as I mentioned, the first thing is, let me confirm this is the right. Yep. So as I mentioned, the first thing we are doing is creating the Azure Cognitive Service. So I'll go to portal.azure.com, ready to create our service. So it will take a second to load. But then, yeah, this is how Microsoft Azure looks like. If you've not been here before, this is an overview of Microsoft Azure. And the first thing we are doing is creating a resource for us to now detect the language. So it's under AI and machine learning, and then the language service. You can also search up here. It doesn't matter how you access it, but this is the resource you're creating, the language service. So the language service will help us to detect whether the sentiment is positive or negative. So the main feature we need is sentiment analysis. So we not need anything else. We just go ahead and create. So I'll use my subscription, and then for the resource group, I can either create a new one, or since this is a demo, I always have my demos in one resource group. So I'll leave it at demo.ai. And then the region you can choose depending on where you're located. So mostly on latency, and also based on the resources that you'll get. So there are some regions that do not have all the resources you might need. So for me, I'll go with West Europe. And then the name of the resource, so our resource name will be sentiment analysis for the reactor session, so reactor. And then pricing tier, you might have more options. I already have the existing cognitive services running. So the main option you can go with is the free service, but for me, I'll go for the 1K calls per minute, the standard option. And then the other thing you might have here is a storage. So if you've not created a storage account before, you might have one here so that it will enable you to store all the things that you'll be using at that time. So I think that's it for me. I'll go ahead and certify that I have acknowledged the terms in responsible AI. So you can read through them. I've already read through them, so I won't have to do it again. But you can read through the resources and then have the application reviewed. So once the validation has passed, go ahead and create your resource. It will take a minute or two as it creates. So let me see it until deployment. Then we can move to, so the deployment is being submitted. Once it's deployed, we can move to Power Automate. So deployment is in progress. So it will take a while for it to deploy. So next thing we'll do is go to Power Automate. Power Automate can access it with flow.microsoft.com. And once you're here, the first thing we'll do, since this is it's not an existing connector, so we want to create our connector from scratch. That means we'll be creating a custom connector. So under data, we'll go ahead to custom connectors to create our connector. And you can see I already have past connectors that I've created, but I want us to do one from scratch. So I'll go ahead and create a new custom connector from scratch. You can create connectors in different ways, probably from Azure, from OpenAPI, from a Postman collection, but I want to teach you how you can create one from a blank. So the connector name, sentiment analysis for the reactor. And then I'll go ahead and create the sentiment analysis. Something else is this is a premium feature, so you can opt in for the free trial period. So for the free trial, you don't have to pay anything. So you can experiment with the connector for a while. And if you like it, you can go ahead and do a purchase. After that, this is the page that is given to us. So we get now the page to start creating our connector. The first thing is the background color, which of course it's not something that you actually have to update. But then the second thing is the description. So what does your connector do? So our connector uses the cognitive, let me add language, cognitive service API to determine whether the text is positive or negative. So that's what our application, our connector will do. And then the other thing you have to do is to add the host. So this is now a link to the cognitive service. So normally you write your region. So our region is West Europe. So depending on now the region you chose. So if we come here, once the deployment is done, and we go to the resource, you'll be able to see the region and the keys and endpoint. You'll be able to see your region here. So your region and then api.cognitive.microsoft.com. That's the host that we're using. After this, you can go ahead and configure the security. So for the security, we'll need someone to use an API key to be able to access the connector because it's something you created from your Azure portal. So the parental label will be API key, and then the parameter name. This is found in the documentation for this. So it's just a parameter that determines now what exactly is here, which is the subscription key, but then this is the wording that you use to add the parameter name. After that, you can go ahead and create your connector. Let's see. Okay, let's just give it a second. Yep, our connector is created. But then it can't do anything because we've only defined the general what it does and the security. We've yet to give it a description of what action it will take and the different things it will do. So what the next thing for us to do is to create the action, a new action. And the new action now, that's where we determine what exactly is the action the connector can do. Probably let me backtrack a bit. In Power Automate, we have two things, an action and a trigger. An action is now what happens when the trigger is pushed. So for example, a trigger is now something that makes an action happen. So for example, a trigger might be when someone fills in the form, you pass the details through the action, which is now the action that you're building. Something like if you press a button, probably it will tell you the weather. So the trigger will be pressing the action, the trigger will be pressing the button, and then the action will be giving you the weather. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new action. So the first thing is a summary of what it does. So it returns a numeric score representing the sentiment detected. Then the description, the API returns a numeric score between 0 to 1. And then the score close to 1 indicates that is positive sentiment, and those close to 0 indicate that's a negative sentiment. So score close to 1 represents a positive sentiment, and those close to 0 represent a negative sentiment. Okay, so negative sentiment. And that will be it. So you've already given your action summary, a description of what it does, and then you also have to do an operation ID. So this is like a unique identifier to show that this is the action that you want to do. So I'll call it sentiment. Detect, no. Yeah, I'll just label it, give it the label of what it does. So it detects sentiments. So that's it. And then the other thing is now validating the request and the response. Request is now what you give it, and response is what it gives you. So what is the request in our case? So the request is a post the request is a post, and the URL, of course, same to what we did, the same thing, but now it defines the. So we first define so HTTPS. First define the region, West Europe, and then we give it the link to now the API. So westeurope.api, cognitive.microsoft.com, and then define now the API, which is the text analytics. So this is the main part. So text/analytics/version 2.0/sentiment. So that's the text we're using. Then we have the headers, you don't have to write anything there, and the body. So the body is a JSON object of what we expect it to give us. So the first thing we expect it to give us is probably the documents. And under the documents, it will give us now the feedback that we'll want. So documents will give us, the first thing we'll receive from the document is the language. So we want people, when you're trying to detect the sentiments, you want to know which language the sentiment is from. So that's the first thing, language string. And then the second thing, the second thing will be the ID. So the ID of the text. So it's just a unique identifier for the text, and that will also want it to be a string. And then the third one will be, the last one will be now the text. The text is now what you want to detect sentiment for. It will be text. And then still the same thing, the type will be, the object type will be string. And then we'll close it tab. So give me a second. Okay. And that will be a JSON. So I hope you can be able to see it. So the documents, which will now contain the language, what language is it in, the ID, a unique identifier, and the text. So I'll go ahead and import them. And then you have to now go ahead and also define. So under body, you have to define the parameters. So for example, the ID, we have to define, this is the ID, what does it represent? So it represents an identifier. So this is just an identifier for the documents that will be uploading, an identifier. And then the default value, since it's a string, default value will be 1. Is it required? Yes. And then you'll go back and define the second thing, which is the language. Language is now like, the title of course will be language, and it's the character code for the language that the text will be in. So character code for the text language. And our default value, since we'll be using English, our default value will be in English. And then the last part is the text. So for text, we'll also have to define. So this will be text, and then what is the text for? So it's the text that we are using to analyze sentiments. So text to analyze the sentiment, default value, probably none at the moment. And is it required? Yes. And that will be it. So we've done the request, but is it required? Yes. So we've done the request part of this, but we also have to do the response. So we also have to add a default response so that when you're giving, when you're passing this through, it can also have an idea of the response that it's supposed to give. So since it's a longer JSON, I don't think I'll be able to take it all down, but this is the response that we expect. So under documents, we'll get the score and also the string for the ID. But then if we have an error, it will give us the ID and then the string. So I'll go ahead and import, and that will be it. I can update my connector. So as you wait for the connector to connect, probably we can be creating our forms. So forms.office.com, and this is an event. Sign in. Okay, let me do this again. Office.com. My apps, I'll go to forms. So yeah, so I can create a new form, and this form, we just want to collect feedback. So this is the Reactor session, and we want to find out how everyone is feeling about this. So since at the end of the day, we'll be sending an email back to you, the first thing we'll collect is an email address. So an email address which is required, and then we want to know about the rating. So we want you to give us a rating for the session, rating to the upwards of 10. You telling us how the session was. So how was today's session? And then the last bit will be now the text that we want to analyze. So this will be also required. So give detailed feedback of how the event was for you. And then we'll give it now to the audience to reply. So if I go to collect responses, I'll have to edit to anyone can respond, shorten URL, and then I'll copy it for future use. So I won't share the URL first with you because we've not created our flow yet. So I'll just copy it for future use. Yeah. And then from there, that's now the form that we'll be using. Let's go back to our custom connector. Let's see if we can test it out, right? So let's add a new connection here. So this will require us to add the API key. Remember, we had talked about adding the API key. So we'll go back to our API and add it there to authenticate the whole thing. And then once it's authenticated, let's see, let's give it a second. Let me just refresh it. We can be able to test. So if I say the event was awesome, let's see how the feedback will look like. So the operation is being provincial, so I'll have to come back again in a few seconds. So let me just update it, and then once we're done with our flow, we'll come back to it. So yeah, it's now time to create our flow. It's now time to create our flow, and we'll go ahead and create one. So it will be automatic, meaning once someone submits a new response, we'll get them to give us feedback, and then this will be the name. It will be Reactor, and then sentiment analysis, and then we'll go ahead and create. So that's the first step in our flow. We've already created the form, so the form will be the Reactor session, and then the next thing will be us now. We've gotten the flow started when someone has filled the form. So the next thing will be collect responses from the form. So then we go to the form, get response details. That will be the next step. And then the form ID, the form that we just that has just been submitted, that is the reactor session, response ID, the response ID from the form. And then the other thing is now coming to our custom connector. So let's see if it has updated. Yeah, sentiment analysis reactor, and we want it to analyze the sentiments. So we'll fill this for the document language, that's okay. Documents ID, that's okay. But then for the text, we want it to analyze the text for give detailed feedback. Okay, so I'll save it from there and then check if we can test and see if our custom connector is working. So I'll do the same thing. The event was awesome. Just the operation. And this is weird. This was not found. Okay. Let me do a new connection. Let me test if it refuses again. I'll have to use a previous. I'll have to use a previous resource that I had created. So and then okay, so it's giving me a status 44. I'm not sure why. So I'll go back to my resources and use the test that I had previously tried out. So let's see if the test will work out. Copy the key again and new connection. I'll update the key. And then let me just refresh the whole page. The event was awesome. Operation. Okay. New connection. Update the key, create connection. Let's give it a minute. But then once you've been able to now analyze the text, and we'll go back to test it, but then let's continue the next step. So once the test is done, next step will be now a condition. So we'll control it in such a way that to all the responses we'll apply the same thing. So apply to each, and then to each of the documents that we've gotten. So apply to each of the documents, then we'll add an action whereby this will now be a condition. So if the score is greater than, let's go with 6. So if the score is greater than 6, we can say that's a positive value. If it's less than, actually it's 0.6. If it's greater than 0.6, that's a positive sentiment. Then if it's less, that's we can assume that's a negative sentiment. So yes, if the score is greater than 6, we can add an action whereby we send an email to everyone who's replied. So email, Outlook. So we want to send an email, not even with options. Oh, interesting. Let me look for for send an email. And send an email, and then the email will be to the specific people who've responded. So we'll send the email to the email address, and then the subject is thank you for attending our reactor session. Since this is a positive sentiment, we'll just tell the person, hi, we are thank you for attending the reactor session on proactive post-event feedback, and then we can say looking forward to seeing you in the next event. And then regards, the statement name at the end. And then if it's now negative, so we'll still do the same thing, send an email, send email. But then this time, we'll now change the contents of the email. So go ahead, the email address, thank you for attending the reactor session. Something, hello. Thank you for attending. Oh, sorry. Attending the reactor session on post-event, on proactive post-event feedback. We apologize that the event was not as good as you expected. We are working on fixing the issue. Then looking forward to seeing you in the next event. Because then in case you have any follow-up, we'll add now. Here you can add Teams, like a Teams post, add a Teams adaptive form, whereby you now fill in like a chat or a card in the channel, and people can now be able to see the issues that are there. So since this is a step that will also, yeah, actually you can do that immediately. Chat with Flowbot, and it will just send me a chat directly. So the email, I'll be the recipient. Then we can edit now the JSON for the adaptive card. But first, before we go to the adaptive card, I think we'll have to ensure the flow is working. So let's see if it will work this time. I had an awesome time in the session. Then just the operation. It's still giving me a 4-4. I'm not sure what the main issue is. And detect sentiments, I think everything is okay. With Europe here. Oh yeah, the request URL has an issue. So I'll have to edit something here because it's giving me. Oh, I've seen the problem. So I'll go ahead and edit this part. I did a semicolon instead of a double colon, and then I'll now write the JSON. So to save on time, I'll just copy the JSON code. Copy, then I'll paste it. Oh, it's a post request, so I'll just go ahead and import it from there. Yeah, it now looks better. Let me see. So I'll still have to come and update everything. So because of time, I won't update everything step by step. So I'll just, it's required. This is the language. Default value is English. And then, yep. For the ID, I've also not added the default value is 1. And then the text, the default value should be text. The default value is none. Okay. I think from here it will now be able to work. So let's give it a second as it updates. Wait. Yeah, let's give it a second as it updates. Let me go back to my sentiment analysis service and copy the key. It's already updated, so I'll come back to test. A new connection. I'll paste the key here, create the connection, and then the event was awesome. Let's see if it now works. I think now it will work here. So it's telling us the score is 0.9, which is actually a very positive score. So let's save our flow since we've seen our connector works. So we can save our flow, and then I'll go ahead and fill in the form. So copy the URL. Let me also paste the URL for everyone in case you want to try it out. You can also try it out. So that's the URL for the form. So email address. Was the event. So I can say I had an awful time at the event. Then I'll submit it, and you can see the response is already here. And then let's see weirdly I didn't even test it. Sorry. So it's telling me it failed. This is weird. Let me go ahead and test. Let me see what the issue is with our flow. So you can see our flow has already run. Sorry, my internet is a bit slow, but let's see. Yeah, so the flow ran a few minutes ago, but it's telling me it has an error. So let me check what the error is. The error is here. Invalid response for workflow. Open API collection. Oh, so the score should be a type integer, but it's a type float. Oh, that's for the responses. So let's go back to our definition. Let's see our test definition was, I think it was okay. Ola, do you know the fix for this? it's asking me the definition is supposed to be, let me show you. So the API property is supposed to be overtype integer, but is overtype float. So that's the error, but it's under the score. So
Yeah,
it's
that's in the body of the connector.
yeah.
So you have to check
But
the
then
output of the connector. Yeah, the connector,
yeah, so
the response. So you just click on the default in the response.
if I click it here, it will do.
Yes. So
Yeah.
score. Yeah.
So
So
score, I have to edit it to
instead of integer, yeah, you see, yeah,
number
you can see
float.
float.
Then let's see. Let's see if it will work from here. So you can still use the same trigger instead of running the flow again. So back here, I'll go back to edit the form and then test automatically with the recent trigger. So I'll test with that. Let's see how it goes. Hoping that it updated.
Yeah, but it might take few seconds or minutes to synchronize. So most of
Yeah,
the changes might not push almost immediately. As far as is float, or is float now, but updating the trigger itself, sorry, the action on Power Automate might take few minutes. It
may
does not
take a few minutes. Yeah,
but we can
yeah.
check if there are
So
questions and then or just discuss for the next 2 minutes the value of this while we then test again. No, by that time it will have synchronized.
yeah. I think we can check if we have any questions.
For now, there are no questions in the comment area. But in case you're just joining or you're joining at any point and you're wondering what kind of solution we're trying to build here, to be honest, if you collapse all the bars, you will see we have less than 5 action cards that we're using for this solution. But it's something that truly solves problem. What kind of challenge we are trying to solve here, which is proactive management, whatsoever it is. Proactive because today every organization want to put themselves forward that we are customer focused. We want to seek your satisfaction either as an organization, either as a training in company or whatever it is. Anything you do that you service other people, you want to prove to them that we are customer focused. We are customer centric in whatever we do. We seek your satisfaction. But do we really seek satisfaction? Do we really address customer complaints the way we should? And Bethany has showed us right here that organizations are now proactive with collecting feedback. Collecting feedback means when you attend an event, they ask you, are you satisfied or not? Yeah. They are very active at asking you if you are satisfied or not. If you and take a service, maybe you subscribe to a service, they will ask you how satisfied are you. They are proactive at asking questions. But are they proactive at addressing those feedback? If you are not happy, will they almost get back to you immediately? Oh, we are sorry because you are not active. If you are not happy with the training, if you are not satisfied with the training, will they get back to you almost immediately? That we're sorry that you are not happy with it or satisfied with the training. People don't get proactive with get feedback. It's only when they want to collect feedback that they're proactive. And this solution will solve that problem. So that when you attend an event and they ask you, for example, fill this form, how was the event? You fill the form, almost immediately you get a response. And if you are not happy, you get a message, we are sorry you are not happy. You feel like your feedback matters. If it is a training, when someone asks you, how satisfied are you with this training? And you say, oh, no, I'm not happy. Someone get back to you. We are sorry that you are not happy or satisfied. So that way you truly deliver customer experience and you're after their success. So I would advise maybe you should remove the the action and add it again. That might help because it should have synchronized by now. Yes.
Yeah, so we can add the action again. So it's under custom connectors. Sentiment analysis reactor. If this refuses, we can use one I did previously. So for text, instead of that, we'll have the give a detailed response of your feedback. We'll go ahead and save. Oh, I'll have to edit. So output from the previous. So give it. Give me a second. So this will be the documents from the previous Twitch document. You get the score. If the score is about 0.6, then we send an email. So let's see if it will run again. So 6 minutes ago, let's test it out. Yeah, so it's a success. So let's see. So that was my email. So go to Outlook and see if I've got such an email. Yeah, there's the email. So you can see, thank you for attending the Reactor session on proactive post-event feedback. We apologize that the event was not as good as you expected, but we're working on fixing the issue. So that's the feedback you get. So if someone sent, if you fill in the form now, so there's a second response. So let me see if I can have it run again with the second response. So let's go ahead and test it. And I believe for the second person who filled the form, will also be receiving the same feedback. So we have, I think, 7 minutes. So I think we can continue with the next part. So you've seen, I've been able to, let me go back to edit the flow. And let me go back to our presentation. So you see the first part was about a form being submitted and then being able to detect whether it's positive or negative. Then if it's not, if the score is higher, if you have like a good positive, so it's a happy customer, you technically just need to send them your thank you email and that's it. But then if it's a dissatisfied customer, you might need to tell them, okay, probably we're sorry, but then you also need to remind yourself this is something that you need to work on. So let's go back to our flow and under the so if it's greater than 0.6. So if it's not, that's now the dissatisfied customer who's saying we want to fix the issue. So we'll go ahead and create a Teams action from our end. So Teams adaptive, a Teams adaptive card on a chat or a channel. So we'll post it as the bot. Yeah, we'll just post it as a bot and then post it in chat with the bot. So we don't want to have anything else. So that will be it. Yep, I was wondering. So the recipient will be me. So that's, I'll use my student ambassador email, student ambassadors at student ambassadors email and then the card. So the JSON for the card. So this is now like a description of what you want the card to say. So maybe I can ask, Ola, do you have any idea what we want our card to say?
Not really.
So maybe, yeah.
Not really, but we can. Well, anything. Nothing specific, by the way.
Yeah, so you can just have it be like a JSON with just like, okay, this is the feedback that we want, and so on. So we received, so probably just telling you, okay, this is the form we received, and so on. So for the
Yeah,
adaptive card,
yeah.
since
Sorry, Bethany. In that
yeah,
scenario, if we collect more details about the customer, for example, if we know if the customer exists in the system, if we know the phone number, the contact number of the customer, and the email, we can actually share those details directly. That can you reach out to this customer using these contact details? But we don't have that collected on the form, so it's just maybe just to notify the person on Teams that, oh, this person, this particular customer with this name or with this email is not satisfied with our training.
so let me see under advanced options. So card no. So we'll still have to add some bit of JSON here. So the first part of the JSON will be, of course, the schema. So I'll add a bit of the schema part and then the body. So give me a second. I think if I type this out, it will take a while. So I'll just go ahead and copy paste the schema. So this is the schema. We're looking at the adaptive card. The version is 1.0, and then the body, and then under the body is now we will have the text. So we can have first thing we can have is the text that tells this person, okay, so this will be the email, and then what will be getting out is the email address for the email address from the form. So email address, and then the other thing we'll do is now the text, the feedback. So the second part will be feedback. And then here it will be the question on get detailed feedback of how the event was for you. So this part will be the feedback. So I'm not sure if this will work, and because I've not defined the different ideas, but then close it from there, and then final closing point. So let's see. Probably it will tell me I have some errors here, but let's see how it goes. So yeah, it's going okay. So let me run it again. Let me run it with the test I had done. So I'll use it with the one that failed. Let's see if the adaptive card will work. Yeah, it has an error. Oh, this is interesting. Apply to each. Yeah, the adaptive card has failed. What is the issue? Oh yeah, the
So
I can see it.
alternative is the
Yeah,
schema, right? Yeah. So
it's a schema for the
alternatively,
JSON file.
we can actually post a message to a Teams chat, to a Teams group. There's
So I think
maybe
the
that.
only point, yeah, for here it's I think the alignment, because this is a JSON file and I
Yeah,
technically do not have the lines. So yeah, I
exactly.
think maybe I can fix it
Yeah, we can just post. We can use the
with a
action to
message. Yeah.
exactly.
So instead of a card, I just post a message to Teams. So uh, Microsoft Teams, and then no, don't create a chat.
It's post. I think it's post a message or send a message to Teams channel, something like that.
Yeah, Teams. Post a message to a chat or a
Yeah,
channel.
Exactly.
And then, so the message will be chat with a flowbot. So because of the schema, so the recipient will be myself. So I'll go back and just use my email. And then after my email, I'll say, hi, complaint from, and then I'll do the email address, then complaint details, and then I'll do now the detailed feedback. So for the adaptive card, I think the main issue is JSON, because of if I had a copy, I could just copy paste from a code editor. But then let's see how this goes. So back to the field test, then test it again. Let's see how it goes.
Okay, what that
I received an email,
yeah,
and then if I check Teams, I'm pretty sure I'll also see the message. So
while you're checking that, there's a question there from GTech ICT. Can we have condition for positive, natural? I mean, I believe that is neutral, positive, neutral, and negative. While you were evaluating the score, like, can we have this condition instead of just a single condition? Can we have for one for positive, for negative, and neutral?
so yeah, you can have one for positive, neutral, and negative. So unfortunately for the conditions, it's only either or. So unless you specify the conditions, so when you're doing the conditions, so here the condition is just either or. So it's either this or this. But I think you can add, if I'm not wrong, can you add more than one condition?
Yes, you can actually add condition where you can say or and, so you can do
Yeah.
that.
Or
Do
yeah, you
and
can actually.
add
But then
another
I'm not
one.
sure. I'm not sure if we can have the
Three.
three different columns.
So
Yeah.
a work around this is just to say, oh, if it is greater than 0.5, we know maybe that is positive. If no,
Then
then add another condition inside no.
yes,
To now
nesting the conditions.
evaluate again.
Yeah.
I'm not doing.
So instead of, because the conditions can only be two, so even if you use or you add another condition here, it will still be two. So the best is you can do the nesting. So like for now, if it's greater than 0.6, yes. If it's 0.5 and below, create another condition here. So the condition will be now to separate the two. So if it's 0.5, do this. If it's less than 0.5, do this. So I think you've been able to see the message. Or I think you've been able to see the message from myself. So the complaint is from myself and the complaint details. So I've received a chart that I can now be able to evaluate from there. Right?
Yeah, very clear.
And then I think you've seen the different emails I've also received. So an email telling me, okay, you're a dissatisfied customer. So if you fill in the form, probably, let me see if there's anyone else who's filled the form. Other than the tests, yeah. So I think there's someone who's filled in the form here, apart from the test. So you can also go ahead and check to fill in again and check what the response will be. But yeah, this is generally the entire session. We're 5 minutes over time. I'm so sorry. So over to you, Ola, if you have anything else as we close.
Yeah, not very much. I want to say thank you, Bethany, and just to tie the learnings together again, that the solution we built with this walkthrough under 1 hour can actually solve a pain point in the organization or in any training institute where you are, or even for yourself, for the training you're organizing next. You can follow this video to create something similar. so that you can truly address the needs of the people even after the event. The way you make them feel, so that they can be aware that our voice actually matter, our voice actually counts. So thank you. I appreciate everyone. Um, yeah, for the questions we respond back. I mean, just check. Maybe you should check through the chat. I say question and check through the chat. You will see the link where you can take part in other learning engagements, aka.ms/learn student. Once you visit there, you'll be able to see more learning resources for your needs. Thank you very much, everyone, and thanks, Bethany, once again.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I hope you had a good day.
Bye.